Okay, so you've probably seen these kinds of stories bubble up online, right? Maybe in your news feed, or you see these short
Oh, yeah,
videos.
the amateur predator catcher things.
Exactly. Groups trying to catch people they think are online predators. It's fascinating, but as we're going to see today, it gets really complex really fast.
Definitely.
So today, we're doing a deep dive into one specific case where things went pretty sideways at Assumption University in Massachusetts.
Right. This one really highlights the potential pitfalls.
We've pulled together quite a bit of material for this news report, some YouTube transcript bits from places like Law and Crime Network, CBS, Inside Edition, NBC. Also looked into the whole history around To Catch a Predator.
Good context to have.
Yeah, so the mission here is basically to unpack what happened at Assumption, why it raises some pretty serious legal and ethical flags, and what it tells us about this whole online vigilantism trend.
And it's interesting right from the start, isn't it? How something that maybe starts with, intentions of protecting people can spiral so quickly into actions that are legally dicey, maybe even harmful themselves.
Totally. The Assumption case is just a textbook example of that kind of rapid descent, I guess.
Yeah, into the messy stuff.
Okay, so let's get into the specifics there. This was back in October. You have a 22-year-old guy. He's from North Carolina, travels up to Worcester, Massachusetts.
Okay.
He's on Tinder, matches with Kelsey Brainard. She's an 18-year-old student at Assumption.
Right, and this is key. According to the actual criminal complaint, her Tinder profile listed her as 18.
Ah, okay, so from his point of view...
He thought he was talking to and planning to meet another adult.
Gotcha. So they arranged to meet on campus, Alumni Hall specifically.
Okay. Seems straightforward enough at this point.
Well, yeah, until he actually gets there. Instead of just meeting Kelsey, he's suddenly confronted by, a huge group. Dozens of students. Yeah, yelling at him, calling him a pedophile, saying he was there for an underage girl. He claims they chased him, he got hit on the head, someone slammed a car door on him.
Wow. Okay, so it got physical.
It sounds like it. And the surveillance footage seems to back up his story.
Oh, it's video.
Yep. The criminal complaint mentions it. News outlets reported on it. It shows Brainard escorting him into the building, then later shows him running out, being chased by this big group of students, all holding up their phones, filming.
Filming the whole thing.
Right. And here's where it gets, kind of telling. The footage also apparently shows the students afterwards, laughing and high-fiving, including Brainard herself.
Oh, so that really suggests it wasn't just a spontaneous, oh no, look who's here kind of thing.
Exactly. It points pretty strongly towards it being, planned,
Gotcha.
staged.
Which then makes you wonder, what was the actual plan? What did they tell police happened?
Well, initially, Brainard told the police a different story. She claimed he was just some creepy guy who showed up uninvited trying to meet someone underage.
Okay, but the video.
Right. When the police showed her the footage, she admitted her first story wasn't true. But then she kind of tried to downplay her role. Blamed another student, Easton Randall. He's 19.
Okay, so passing the buck a bit, what did Randall say?
Randall's statement to investigators is pretty revealing. It's in the complaint. He basically said, and I'm quoting loosely here, that the whole point of the Tinder invite was to copy that TikTok thing.
The predator sting videos.
Yeah. Luring a sexual predator to a location and subsequently physically assaulting him or calling the police. That was the stated goal, apparently.
So they were explicitly trying to replicate those online videos.
Yeah.
And potentially assault someone.
Seems like it. And he also mentioned something else that's troubling. He said things really blew up after someone in a dorm group chat used the word underage to describe who the guy was supposedly meeting.
Ah, so that word underage was like throwing gasoline on the fire.
Pretty much. It brought way more students into it. And, this is really important, the criminal complaint itself says, quote, the subject is not in any way designated a sexual predator.
Right. That's huge. They went after this guy based on this plan, and according to the police, there was no official reason to label him a predator beforehand.
None whatsoever, which really undermines the whole justification, doesn't it?
Completely. So what happened to the students? Charges were filed.
Oh, yeah. Initially, 6 of them. Brainard, Randall, Kevin Carroll, Isabella Trudeau, Wake and Smith, they're all 18 or 19, plus a 17-year-old juvenile.
And the charges were serious.
Very. We're talking kidnapping, conspiracy, intimidating a law enforcement official, that was Brainard specifically, and assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, which sounds like it relates to the car door, maybe.
Wow, kidnapping. That's heavy.
Definitely. All 5 adults pleaded not guilty, and their lawyers filed motions to get the charges tossed out.
And how did that go? Has a judge ruled?
Yes, as Law and Crime Network reported, the judge did rule on some of this. The kidnapping and conspiracy charges were dismissed against Brainard, Randall, Trudeau, and Smith.
Okay, so those big ones are gone for most of them,
Yeah.
but not all charges.
No, not all. Brainard still faces that witness intimidation charge, and Kevin Carroll is still facing the assault and battery with a dangerous weapon charge.
Interesting. So why were the kidnapping charges dropped? What was the legal argument?
Well, listening to legal analysts like William Corman on Law and Crime, the defense argued about the definition of kidnapping, specifically the requirement for forcible or secret confinement.
Okay.
Their point was, look, the guy was able to run away, at least at first. He wasn't secretly locked up or physically held in place the whole time.
So if he could physically leave, even if chased, it doesn't meet the legal bar for kidnapping confinement.
That seems to be the argument the judge agreed with, yeah. It's a specific legal standard.
Makes sense, legally speaking. What about the conspiracy charges? Why were those dismissed?
Similar line of reasoning, really. The defense argued there wasn't enough probable cause to show they all specifically agreed to kidnap him.
Right. So maybe they agreed to confront him or film him or yell at him.
Exactly. But did they all form an actual unlawful agreement beforehand with the specific intent to kidnap? The defense said the prosecution didn't show that for each person. You can't just lump everyone together because they were there.
Okay. So lack of proof of a specific agreement to commit that particular crime, kidnapping.
Seems like it. The judge must have found that element wasn't strong enough for those students.
This whole thing really just screams, the dangers of amateurs trying to do law enforcement work.
Absolutely. Sheriff Chris Swanson, the guy who's worked with Chris Hansen.
Right, from To Catch a Predator.
Yeah, he's spoken about this a lot. He was on Law and Crime Network talking about how risky this is. People who might actually be predators are often really good at manipulation, at covering their tracks.
And amateurs just don't have the training right. They don't know how to handle it safely. They could put themselves in danger or someone else.
Totally. And Swanson also made another really good point. These amateur stings can mess up real investigations.
How so?
Well, think about it. If they question someone improperly, or if their setup looks like entrapment, that evidence could get thrown out in court.
Okay. Contaminating the evidence.
Yeah, he used the term poisoned. If the initial evidence gathering is flawed, anything that comes from it is tainted, makes it harder, maybe impossible, for actual law enforcement to build a solid case later.
That's a huge problem.
Yeah.
And then there's the liability for the amateurs themselves, right?
For sure. Swanson mentioned that too. If you hold someone against their will and you don't have legal authority like the police do, you could be looking at a serious civil lawsuit.
Right. False imprisonment, stuff like that. You can definitely see the students in this case facing that possibility from the guy they targeted.
Absolutely. Which kind of brings us back to Catch a Predator itself. It's a famous show, obviously.
But it's different, right? They work with the police.
Crucially different, yeah. They coordinate with law enforcement, these online groups doing it themselves. Totally different ballgame. Much riskier.
And even with the professional show, things haven't always gone smoothly. There was that incident.
The Bill Conrat suicide back in 2006? Yeah, that's a really sobering example.
Remind us what happened there.
Conrat was actually a prosecutor. He killed himself as police were arriving with a warrant based on an online sting set up by the show. The thing is, he hadn't even gone to the meeting place.
Wow, so he didn't even show up. But the confrontation at his home led to tragedy.
Exactly. It led to huge criticism of NBC's methods, questions about, trial by media before due process. His sister sued, and it was eventually settled.
That really highlights the immense pressure and the potential for things to go tragically wrong, even in a more controlled setting.
It does, and it makes you think, are these shows or these online amateurs just reporting something? Or are their actions actually creating the situation, maybe pushing things just to get dramatic footage?
That's a really uncomfortable question, especially when you tie it back to Assumption University, where the motivation was apparently
a TikTok trend. Yeah, Randall explicitly mentioned simulating a TikTok trend.
So it wasn't even necessarily about justice. It was about copying something they saw online for clicks, for attention.
Seems like that was a big part of it. And you do see more of this now, right? Inside Edition reported on the rise of these online vigilante groups trying to expose people on YouTube and other platforms.
Yeah, some might say they're doing a public service, but law enforcement usually sees it very differently.
They see it as dangerous, counterproductive, like Sheriff Swanson said. The desire for entertaining content can just steamroll safety and legal procedures.
So what did Assumption University say about all this? officially.
They put out a strong statement, condemned the students' actions, called it abhorrent, antithetical to their values, said they're committed to campus safety and don't condone violence or misconduct.
Standard institutional response, but necessary, I guess. It's a huge liability and reputation issue for them, too.
No doubt. So wrapping things up, where are we now? Some big charges dropped for most of them.
Right, the kidnapping and conspiracy. But not everything.
No. Brainard still has that witness intimidation charge hanging over her. Carol has the assault and battery charge. Those are still serious.
And the potential civil lawsuits we mentioned, that's still very much on the table.
Absolutely. This whole case, it's just such a clear warning sign, isn't it? About online vigilantism, about leaving investigations to professionals who actually know the procedures, the laws.
And who operate within that framework that's supposed to protect everyone's rights and ensure due process.
Yeah. And it makes you think about accountability, too. Like, what happens when actions driven by online trends have these massive real-world consequences? Who's responsible?
It's complicated because even if the initial intention felt, okay, maybe good is the wrong word.
Yeah, debatable for sure.
It just escalated so fast into something potentially criminal with really lasting fallout for everyone.
You can totally see the path, though. You want to copy something popular, like To Catch a Predator. You want the social media buzz, the validation.
And suddenly you're involved in something incredibly reckless.
Yeah. And the legal stuff, the arguments about kidnapping and conspiracy, it just shows these situations aren't black and white. The legal definitions matter, and amateurs just don't have that understanding.
Nope. And you hear warnings from guys like Sheriff Swanson over and over about the dangers, about messing up real cases.
Yeah.
It just underlines how risky this stuff is.
And that Conrad tragedy is always there in the background, isn't it? A reminder of the worst-case scenario, even with professionals involved.
Definitely sobering.
So it kind of leaves you wondering, what is the right outcome here for the charges that are still pending? And what's the bigger message from this case about how we act online, about where entertainment ends and the law begins?
It's definitely one to keep an eye on. Still unfolding and lots to think about.